Welcome to Seeing the Unseen, everyone. And tonight I've got a wonderful guest, Mark Cappell from New Zealand, a fellow Kiwi. How you doing, Mark?
Yeah, doing all right. Thanks, Darrin.
That's awesome, man. Really thrilled to have you on, Mark. I must say that when I first started getting interested in Bigfoot and Dogman, etc., I was absolutely shocked to see there's an actual, not only another paranormal investigator, but one of very high quality, and you're also a Bigfoot researcher in New Zealand.
Yes, I must say that they found me. I didn't know that they were here until strange things started happening out in the bush.
Right. Actually, when did you start begin to be interested in the paranormal, please, Mark?
It's been something that's been happening for most of my life. I've had many experiences with those who passed on, and also hauntings. And we were chased out of our house through poltergeist activity in the 80s. And so I had a lot of that kind of stuff, like when I was younger. Some of it was very terrifying.
Yeah.
I've seen all kinds of beings. Things started to change a bit in the United States. In 2013, I had a close encounter in the southern Nevada desert with a oblong, metallic, mercury-like object that was silent in the sky that flew right in front of me.
Wow.
When I was prospecting. In fact, I had this impression to pull over to this area. And from 2013 onwards, I got a lot more into ufology. I always had an interest in ufology, but when I had an undeniable experience, that one, along with two, let's just say, strange individuals after the sighting, in 2013, I really got heavily involved in ufology. I ended up joining Las Vegas UFO hunters and went out quite a bit with them, sky watching, and rubbed shoulders with them and other people, and that was great. And I went with my girlfriend at the time to the verge of Skinwalker Ranch in northeastern Utah.
Wow.
And for anyone that knows anything about Skinwalker Ranch, George Knapp wrote a book about the events that took place over at Skinwalker Ranch. And I actually did a documentary on my experience over there. I actually wore point-of-view cameras and infrared cameras. I actually did a couple of night investigations, not on the property, but in the surrounding properties. It's pretty highly guarded there. The guards actually sent their dogs out at us, just even on the public road at that point in time. But anyway, some strange things happened there. I actually got anomalies on camera flying against the wind. They approached me and flew right past my face, lighting up the side of my face on an infrared point-of-view camera. And the Saturday night in early July 2013, we were perched on Ufo Hill out in the boonies there, kind of by ourselves, really dark area, UFO Hill, that the locals call it. We were set up on this hill. I had all my cameras set up and everything. And some very strange things happened. I heard this something cry out. It didn't sound like anything I've ever heard. Not a coyote or any of the other wildlife. It was really bizarre. And there was an explosion that happened right by us. At the time, I did not know until reviewing the footage that a larger rock had been thrown right by us. So whatever threw that had a lot of strength.
Right.
And I had some strange EVPs, and the phenomena seemed to follow me down to here in New Zealand.
Wow.
Or somehow something happened that set some things off here in New Zealand as well, and I believe strongly connected to Skinwalker Ranch. Skinwalker Ranch is probably one of the most haunted areas in the United States. They had a scientific team, Robert Bigelow and his team, the National Institute for Discovery Science, actually conducted a scientific study of the phenomena taking place there. There was UFOs, things that looked like Bigfoot, poltergeist phenomena, cattle mutilations, strange wolf-like creatures that seemed to be bulletproof. Very, very bizarre things going on there.
You've got this marvelous documentary that you have online where you've actually interviewed people from the Ute tribe in the local area, or?
Yes, that was part of my connection up there. I knew someone that lived up close to that area.
Wow.
Now, it's very hard to talk to the local natives. They aren't very trusting of people. I had a production company contact me trying to also get those same contacts that I had because it's that hard. Anyway, I did speak to Larry Sesbuch, who is a spiritual leader there in the with the Ute tribe, and he told me about some of his experiences. He also put me on to a man that spoke to us confidentially because of his standing in the community about a large UFO sighting. I say UFO. There's a lot of people that saw it. It had apparently knocked power out to the area.
Wow.
There's another man, a security guard, who also saw it and lost his job for reporting it. I believe this may be in a new documentary coming out, so someone else is putting it out. But there's a lot of very strange things here. In the 60s and 70s, they probably had more UFO sightings there than anywhere else in the world. There's a lot of sightings of saucer-shaped, cigar-shaped craft there. A lot was happening. A local school teacher basically took reports of all these people's sightings. Some of them, the craft had even landed, and people had seen strange creatures. And I mean, this is like something out of the X-Files.
Yeah. Well, I tell you what, mate. I mean, if you're like Mulder out of the X-Files, to be honest. It's like you've seen the whole gambit, really. It's like
I've seen all kinds of things, and the big question mark to me, Darrin, is why, and why is it attracted to me? Because I'm also very sensitive to things. Sometimes I can pick up strange things that are going on. I'll get drawn to an area. And the sightings I've had, and I've seen some very scary things. I've seen beings that some of the things are kind of like out of a horror movie. Some of them have actually attacked me. So I've had to focus a lot on spiritual defense. In the 2000s, I had to deal with it because my life was actually spiraling out of control at the time. I had to learn about what they call psychic self-defense, and I actually had helped people too with a psychic medium. We helped people who are dealing with bad hauntings, and so I've had quite a bit to do with helping people, and also doing investigations with a paranormal team as well.
Great. So when you went to Skinwalker Ranch, you think something happened, like you opened up to it, or?
Yes. George Knapp, investigator reporter, he mentioned that this phenomenon seems to take a piggyback with people that once you've had an experience, your life changes forever. And not only because of the experience, but because these beings, or whatever they are, intelligences, they will connect you. And it's like they know you, and some people have some pretty scary experiences. Mine were kind of scary at the time, and I wasn't really hugely into Bigfoot. I mean, I had a passive interest, but it wasn't an active interest. Of course, I was living in the desert, but I determined whatever that thing was that through that rocket arse and sound it made was a Bigfoot there in the Uintas, and somehow whatever happened there affected what was going to happen in New Zealand. I had no idea that there were Bigfoots in New Zealand until I started having experiences first, and then I started researching and actually opened up to this world of cryptozoology. And what was really funny, because like you doing paranormal investigations, I actually do ITC, instrumental trance communication, where you're using a device to communicate with the dead. It could be with the radio, it could be with a audio recorder, it could be there's a variety of ways of doing it. Yep. But I picked up voices telling me to accept the Bigfoot people. This is back in early 2015 when I only just arrived in New Zealand.
Wow.
They're in the Guardian apartments there on Queen Street in Auckland.
Wow.
And it repeated itself because some skeptics say, well, what comes through the ghost box is only just the radio. I use Faraday material that I shield my device with, and I get repeated messages. And sometimes I'll get sentences. But what was really amazing, I didn't know this until I actually reviewed my footage months later. There's a Polynesian male, what sounds like a Polynesian male, that says, accept the Bigfoot people.
Wow.
And putting that along with the things that were happening to me outside of Auckland, exploring this particular area, was pretty amazing, pretty jaw-dropping stuff.
Now, Mark, is there any historical... I mean, for people that don't know about the New Zealand Bigfoot, it isn't just a recent phenomenon, is it? It goes back into Maori legend.
Yes, you're right. It goes back hundreds of years, and this is before the European settlers came along. The Maori, they talked about these wild men that were stronger than a warrior, and they feared them greatly. In fact, there's different areas in the wilds in New Zealand where they have been spotted. There's hardly any recent reports, but there's a small town mentality here, I believe, in New Zealand, compared to other places like the United States and Australia, where they've had plenty of sightings. But people here seem to not want to go public about things a lot of the times because of ridicule. But I've personally spoke to people who've had modern encounters here in New Zealand, and even people who were skeptics too.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you there. I'm familiar with that as well. It seems to be a New Zealand thing, where they're intimidated, or peer pressure just intimidates people into being quiet, remaining quiet, and it's a shame.
I think it could be a job killer, If people discuss that, they think you're nuts. Well, some of my family think I'm nuts about going into this stuff, but the thing is, they've seen UFOs, and they've seen some paranormal activity, like myself. So, but also when you go into these places where people don't normally go, you can up the ante. If you're going to just stay in the city and not go out to those wild areas, well, your chances aren't very good. Yeah. For having that kind of encounter out there.
Yeah. I mean, this factor of, people being labelled as nuts when they believe in this or talk about it. I mean, just recently, the recent UFO disclosure in the US, they had a chappie on the Tucker Carlson show where they're talking about this tic-tac-shaped object picked up on radar, and yet it vanishes right in front of people's eyes. And these are trained F-18 fighter pilots, but the man on the street that says they've seen a Bigfoot that did that, it's like they get labelled with crazy,
Right. Well, I think it's part of they're extremely elusive, and whenever people capture video of them, it's usually by surprise. It's seldom people putting trail cams up and that. I firmly believe they know what you're doing, what your intention is. When I go out there, I tell them, look, I'm wearing a point of view camera. They know, they're aware of what I'm doing. Because of I do ITC, they laugh when I told them I want to make a documentary about them and my experiences with them here in New Zealand, because to me it's amazing.
It is. It is.
I've actually got their voices. In one of the areas, I have a YouTube channel, and one of my videos is New Zealand. You can hear a wood knock. You can hear them scuttling around heavy footfalls, and they also respond to me verbally. I actually did 3 whoops, and if you listen to the soundtrack, there's a 4th one which is not me, between the third and the second and the third one. And there's this deep voice that has a deep set of lungs that responds to me. It's really, I found a tree that has strange symbols out there too. Really amazing stuff. What would happen is when I went out there first, I would hear something approaching me in the bush. And usually if animals hear a human come in, they take off. They don't approach you unless you're food. And I don't think in New Zealand there's anything that's going to consider food, maybe a wild pig. But
that's right.
What it got more bizarre as time went on. Like one time I was walking out of this area, I had to take a leak on the side. And as I'm taking a leak, I hear something walk up towards me. I could not see it. It was completely invisible. I know it sounds really bizarre, but something was there. My ears were like, there's something walking right up to me. I cannot see it, and I don't know. I can't explain what it was, but going out to this area, I'd get wood knocks. I got what they call samurai chatter, where you hear a muttering like something's talking about you. And because I'm pretty sensitive to energy around me, I basically told them, I said, look, I'm not a threat. I only come in peace. I'm not here to hurt you. Not that I could. They have amazing strength. Some of the things I see that they can do. In America, they can move, really big trees. If you take interest in Bigfoot, like in New Zealand, in America, there's these big structures, like up in Colorado and Utah, and in all these wild areas, there's like these giant X formations, and some of them are really ornate and would be hard for a human to recreate. I mean, I'm talking about the stuff with the really big trees that people can't lift. It would require heavy machinery, and this is in areas that no human goes.
Exactly.
That are found. You've probably seen those videos.
Oh yeah, I mean, like, why would anybody waste their time if they're human going out there and doing such a? I mean, that's a hugely elaborate hoax if it's a hoax, but I can't foresee anybody being able to physically do that.
Yes, those big structures. I mean, there are people that actually go out with shoes that have like a foot on them, and they deliberately hoax an area. So, see, this is why I keep my area secret. There's only one person that knows about it, who's found some similar things to me. Another researcher. He works for the government, and he's found footprints like me and strange structures off the beaten track, so to speak. Yeah.
I mean, you're the New Zealand's best kept secret as far as the paranormal or Bigfoot goes, Mark. It's like, I was absolutely, I can't stress how much, how surprised I was when I discovered you. And, I mean, what you do, the research you do is absolutely amazing.
I've lost some girlfriends because of the ghost stuff. I mean, stuff happens around me too. I mean, I'm just very passionate about this. I mean, after going through a poltergeist experience and various attacks, I've had experiences with those who've passed on, Now, people could say, oh, well, he just imagined it. Well, I've had corresponding information. Like, for example, I hope you don't mind me bringing this up because I think it illustrates contact with those from other realms.
Sure.
I had a dream about a relative I'd never met and never seen. And I could feel this energy come right up to me in the dream. And I said, "Who are you? Can you please show yourself?" Well, he shows a picture of me, and I was taken back because he looked just like me when I was young. And then in the morning when I woke up, I went to check, my email. Well, my father in Australia sent me an email, and it was his picture. And my father knew nothing about what had happened in the dream. My father I think he even really believed in this stuff. But it was the same person that I saw in the dream.
Wow. Well, that's amazing. I mean, people in New Zealand, anywhere, but people in New Zealand, they have these experiences, like with the paranormal ghosts or UFOs or whatever, and I think they're pretty much conditioned to keeping quiet. But I guarantee there's a lot of people out there that actually believe.
Yes, I mean, with putting my videos up there, I've gotten quite a bit of feedback from people who've had experiences like in Coromandel and areas outside of Auckland, and there's a researcher in the South Island who has a Facebook group that I belong to. But there's a lot of people that have experiences. They're just too scared to come out about it. I mean, I'm doing this documentary, and I've been looking for witnesses. It's very hard to find people that are willing to speak on camera about what they've seen. It's ridiculously hard, particularly here in New Zealand. I mean, I've talked to people over in America, and I tell you what, people seem to be. I mean, you get a lot of people are scared there too, but there seems to be more people that are willing to go on the record about their sighting.
Yeah. And I guess it just highlights how real these experiences are, because, I mean, speaking for myself, I mean, I grew up in a house that was haunted, and we heard and seen things that were witnessed by many people, well, more than one person at one time. So you feel quite comfortable in saying, well, something happened externally. It wasn't just in my head. Excuse me. But then again, a couple of weeks ago, I walk into a cafe, I hear, "Hi, Darrin," and I look around and nobody's there, and it was as clear as a bell, and it makes you doubt. You're like, oh my gosh, I'm going crazy, I must be hearing things,
Yes, well, you wonder. See, what I've done in the past is I've actually, I've had them where they're talking about me sleeping. I've actually set an audio recorder up, and I put it on sound activation, and it's actually recorded these voices, some even talking about me snoring, sleeping.
Wow.
In bed. And this is because I knew I'd get them on audio, you know what I mean?
Mm.
Just really amazing stuff, though. It's nice when you can actually validate yourself and have it recorded.
Exactly.
I like to do that. I have samples on my website of some of this stuff.
Exactly, and that's the whole purpose of trying to gain evidence, isn't it? To, well, not so much convince people, but just to let people know, yes, it's real, it's there, it's not a figment of your imagination,
Right. You can feel pretty alone when you've had these experiences.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
As you know, and then people might make it worse, as people can think you're cuckoo.
Yep. Mark, where can people find you on the internet? Like, you have a YouTube channel, do you? Or?
Yes. Well, the best way is to go through hauntedman.net, and at the top of the page there is a YouTube video link. Mm-hmm. So just click on that, and I'll take you to my channel, and I have a variety of videos from ghosts, UFOs, Bigfoot. I've actually been more on Bigfoot stuff lately. I actually did an IT session out in the Bigfoot area, and the words Bigfoot and alien came up
Wow.
on the recordings. But they can just go to hauntedman.net. I have this little blog that I run, and there's articles on my experiences, and also on Skinwalker Ranch as well, my experiences over there, and there's a variety of stuff on the site.
Yeah, I've been there a few times myself, Mark, and since I've met you, and it's a fantastic resource, and it's you've done it so professionally as well. It's amazing.
Yeah, thanks. I just want people to be aware of what's going on, especially if they're having strange things happen themselves. You know, you don't feel so alone if you know others are experiencing similar to you.
Mm, exactly. Now, Mark, you mentioned with regards to Skinwalker Ranch, you mentioned they had great security. Was that private security, or do you think is it the government keeping people out of there?
Well, it's definitely it's private security, former military people.
Right.
You know, they're carrying, you know, they're armed, and they say it's to keep trespassers out, but also my understanding is they do keep records of phenomena that takes place there.
Yeah, I bet they do.
There's also a strong suspicion that I have that the government is very interested in what's going on. Senator Harry Reid actually allocated funds for studying this kind of phenomena, UFOs. It's only just recently come out on that. Robert Bigelow, the billionaire space entrepreneur, he was the key man behind the study between what was going on out there. These portals would open up and craft would come through. And sometimes they would interact with the animals, and sometimes the animals even died in some instances.
Now you've got evidence of UFO phenomenon in New Zealand, or?
I think I have one of the best pieces of UFO footage ever.
Awesome.
I actually forwarded it to the director of MUFON Australia and New Zealand. I don't know if because of what I do, I don't know if he's taking it seriously or not. But I was actually making my documentary. I was out in Coromandel, out at by Mount Mahoy there, the Mount Mahoy Range, and I was just doing B-roll footage, and I see this metallic silver round something large, I would say craft, that was by the mountain. Then it just straight, I wanted to get my camera. I was like, it faded out right in front of my eyes. I thought, well, maybe I'm seeing things. I thought, well, that's possible that maybe I'm just imagining, or maybe it's a reflection. But then what was really interesting was I got my camera and I was just doing footage in that area anyway, of that valley. Well, unbeknownst to me, there were smaller craft in that area. And I've got them doing about Mach 3 close to the ground.
Wow.
And they're flying right up to the sky. Some of them fly right into the ground. They aren't insects. They aren't birds. They're completely silent. They're moving like the speed of a bullet, if not faster.
Wow.
And my camera happened to capture them. I forwarded the footage to Bruce Maccabee, who's he's a physicist. He's actually analyzed a lot of footage in that of UFOs, but some of the people that have seen this footage, I've kept it under wraps because it's going in my documentary. It's amazing. You can see these craft. Some are flying. One was stationary in the sky, and one flew right past it. And you can see in some of the frames, the camera barely caught them. I mean, they're seen. If you were to try to see them, you probably wouldn't see them because they're moving so fast.
Right.
But you can see them in the frames of the video footage. A part of this footage is on one of my videos up on YouTube. It's the Guardian building video. I actually have it's called the Guardian Ghost Box with Bigfoot plus new UFO footage. One of the sources I actually show on that video, and I've zoomed in like 600% through Adobe Premiere. But this to me shows what they could do. Some of them go into the ground, and are they interdimensional? I don't know, but it's extremely bizarre.
It is.
They're doing things. I mean, like you mentioned, the Nimitz encounter. Was it 2004 that the Navy pilots encountered those anomalies? Apparently, I was listening to Coast to Coast show about that the other night. a number of personnel saw these anomalies, and including the military and also people on the ground, according to the show. But these, some people will say, "Oh, maybe it's one of ours," or whatever I got on camera was doing something that nothing that we have can do, unless it's something that can actually pass through physical objects. There was no explosion. There was no collision. Very extremely unusual, high strangeness, as Linda Moulton Howard put it.
Yeah, absolutely. And she's lovely. She's good.
Yes.
I interviewed an Australian guy about 4 weeks back, and he had an amazing encounter on the Berwick Highway going up to Brisbane, where him and about 4 other carloads of people stopped under this UFO that had stopped over the freeway, and this was during a horrendous thunderstorm, and they stood under it for about 40 minutes, and eventually they all got, everybody else except for him was like, "Oh, I've got to go home." It's like, and they all buggered off. It's like, and this thing's still hovering above them. It's like,
I mean, that's amazing, because for them to hang around like that.
Yeah.
I mean, I've spent hours under the skies and stars, with groups, and they don't necessarily cooperate with you when you want. They're not easy to, at least speaking from experience, not easy to get on camera. And but yeah, that's for 40 minutes. You say? I mean, that's if you've. When was this? Was this in the 90s?
Yeah, this was early 90s, yeah.
So, people didn't have cell phone. I mean, the cell phones were there, kind of that.
The old bricks,
Yeah, very few people, I guess, had them. You could afford them back then.
Yeah, and he tried to take footage of it, but pictures of it, but it just turned out as blurry because it was pretty close to them. But he just says it looked like gunmetal grey metal. There was nothing apart from, it was a triangular black craft with a light at each corner heading out, pointing outwards. Apart from that, it was just a metallic, it looked like a ship metal, he said,
Oh, that would be fascinating.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. Was this nighttime that happened?
Yep, it was during there was quite a famous thunderstorm that they had. It was where the lightning was green. And also Barbie, my co-host, Barbie had an experience. Her whole family, herself and her family, watched this UFO again during a storm. Hovered over a cemetery. So it actually makes you wonder: do they seek a place where it's less conductivity?
It's to me, it's a big question. I mean, I understand a lot of activity would happen over at Skinwalker Ranch around storms. One of an author, researcher, Ryan Burns, who lives out there, told me about that. And I, ironically, was over at Skinwalker when there were storms. And does it provide extra energy to manifest? I don't know. They come through a portal and somehow utilizing that energy. I'm not sure, but there could be some correlation between the thunderstorms.
Yeah, it seems to be. I mean, after I heard Lem's story, where he watched as they were driving up, they seen it way in the distance as a wee yellow light, and it came up and it hovered right above the freeway, and that got me thinking: why, out of all that area, would it pick above a freeway? And I'm guessing, speculation of course, but I'm speculating that it's because it's less conductive, especially in Australia where you've got so much iron in the soil. Maybe that's a possibility, I don't know. But I've heard a few stories now where they seem to stay put during a storm.
Well, I know Bigelow's team, they invested a lot of time into studying the cattle mutilations that took place. The ranchers some of his, I think it was all nearly up to 20 prize cattle had been mutilated or taken, and had all the blood drained from them. And there was nothing left on the fur, nothing left on the soil. Certain organs had been removed. And sometimes it happened only just right then, momentarily had happened. It wasn't like something that had, the carcass had laid there for days. Sometimes things happened right after the cattle that died. There were these signature removals of organs and the blood that seems to happen in other places. And sometimes these cattle would disappear. They would have hooves in the snow in winter, and they would completely go missing, as though something had just picked them up and taken them. Now, if it was a government department in the U.S., like the health department, for example, I know there was a fear of prions in the meat, certain things that can cause mad cow disease. Why wouldn't they just test through a local abattoir, instead of flying a helicopter, in the middle of the night? It doesn't sound right,
Yeah, and at the end of the day, it's basically theft. I mean, it's somebody's livelihood, isn't it? It's like...
Yes, well, they're pretty angry, and, a lot of these ranchers would get law enforcement involved, and they just, I think they throw their hands up in the air with a lot of it, what was actually causing it.
Yeah. I think it's Jacques Vallée, the guy that they modelled the French person in Close Encounters after, the UFO researcher, and he points out in a book of his that he thinks that they're interdimensional, these craft, and he's not so sure that they don't have a nefarious agenda, especially in regards to cattle mutilations and that,
Well, I actually kind of agree with them with the interdimensional aspect. There seems to be different kinds, and like, for example, Colares, Brazil, that island, people died from the encounters from the craft, and even the military got involved with that.
Wow.
So, there could be a really negative aspect. There seems to be, at least from there, and other places. But I know some people say that they're benevolent. Maybe they seem to be very scientific. Like I call them the administrators of this world, because it's like they interact with us, but they don't come down the land and say, "Here we are, experiment stuck in an aquarium." And these things are just taking place around us. They have all the control. We don't. We think we're in control, but you've probably heard of those encounters over missile silos, where missiles have been activated and deactivated. Pretty interesting stuff. Strange lights that are seen around them. I mean, that illustrates to me a national security threat. When you've got craft doing that.
Yeah. I actually wonder if we might see some disclosure through this new space force that President Trump's initiating at the moment.
Well, hopefully so. I guess it's slowly happening. I think there's great the military's come out on this. It gives me hope for that.
It's pretty amazing. We're living in a day and an age where the government comes out and says, "Yeah, we tracked an unidentified flying object. We can't account for it."
Well, we've had that happen here in New Zealand too, with the Air Force and that.
We have? I didn't even know that.
Yes, you can go to. There's a good site called Ufo Focus, and they've had some pretty scary close encounters here in New Zealand. There's quite a few stories on there of accounts of even before man had flight, like all these strange airships and that,
Yep.
that were seen in that, and it's a really interesting subject.
Oh, that's right, Mark. I mean, actually, I remember one that occurred, that I was reading about one that happened in Dunedin about 1905, where this huge airship with a light on it floated up over the one of the buildings in Northeast Valley or something, but what was it? A theological college, I think it was, but that was in the paper back then, 1905. It's like, far out. You know, you don't think like things like that happen in New Zealand. It's like it's always over in the US. And
yeah, they do happen. There was a report in the news a couple of years ago of a family in a home that who called the Civil Aviation Authority and asked them, "What are these lights over our house that we keep seeing?" And they described them as being small, and they weren't drones. They picked them up on their security footage around their home on their night vision cameras.
wow,
There's stuff that goes on all the time. It's just we're not aware of it. I think there's a lot that goes on. Those craft can move so quick that you won't see them. I sometimes wonder if they intentionally allow themselves to be seen sometimes,
exactly. And that goes back to the storm thing. I mean, when you've got a craft hovering over a freeway for 40 minutes, I bet you they're not wanting to do that. It's more of a necessity.
If you think about it, if they want to go covert, they don't need to have their lights on.
Exactly.
They could just camouflage with the sky or would do whatever they do. If you look at what happened with the Phoenix lights
Yep.
that, over there, they even had military jets take off into the air. Even Fife Thomington, the governor at the time, he even saw it. I mean, thousands of people saw those lights. I remember speaking to a lady in Henderson, Nevada, seeing those lights moving eastward towards Arizona. But these things have been seen around the world. They're not unique to the Western world.
Yeah. Yep. Well, I'll tell you what, Mark, you seem like you're not just a paranormal investigator or a UFO researcher or a Bigfoot researcher. You seem to be New Zealand's paranormal researcher. You seem to have done your homework, man, and you really are putting yourself out there to not self-promotion, but just getting the evidence out there. It's amazing. Good on you.
Yeah, thanks. I want to know the truth, and I don't really care what people think of me. I mean,
yeah, good on
there's
you.
always going to be detractors, and I understand people do fake stuff for attention or whatever, but I want to know the truth to what's going on, and it's not recorded in a textbook. I mean, there are actual beings out there that have the ability to transcend space.
Yep.
And we like to think we're at the top of the rung of intelligence and awareness, but we're not.
Yeah. I must admit, when I first started looking into Bigfoot a couple of years back, you have a certain camp that believes that they're just an animal, flesh and blood, and possibly they are. But then you have other people, and I always kind of poo-hooed it, to be honest. It's like, they're interdimensional, or there's big orbs seen with them, light anomalies, and I kind of poo-hooed it, but I've come to believe, I like the people, like the camp that believes they're just animals. These people are credible witnesses. They're police officers, they're seasoned hunters, and they've had a traumatic experience, and they are very sincere that they say, yeah, I seen this Bigfoot and it vanished completely in front of my eyes, or something like that,
There's some very bizarre stuff that takes place around those areas. Some people report, for example, Stan Gordon, researcher over in the US, reported people seeing Bigfoot getting off UFOs and causing problems in the area, and they've actually called the police in to investigate, and very bizarre stuff. It's just, it opens your eyes. I mean, when you look into these. But yeah, there's seems to be two main camps. There's those that say that Bigfoot's just an ancient hominid that somehow has not been discovered and innovated. I mean, look at the panda. The panda stayed hidden all those years in China,
Exactly.
and there was reports of them. And pandas aren't exactly smart animals.
That's right.
They live out in the boonies, you know.
In fact, he could be a politician if he could talk.
Yeah, but anything that's really smart, you know, equal us intelligence or smarter and have more abilities, they outwit us. And I think, you know, there's a group that say, well, okay, they're just physical beings. You know, could there be multiple kinds of beings? But yes, the very strange things happen where, like for example, Mike Patterson up in Canada has a channel called Sasquatch Ontario. He's picked up some amazing vocals of his interaction there with them, and sometimes they say his name. Very strong set of lungs, and their footprints go along and then they just disappear. Sometimes activity will happen in the home. Now, I've had the same thing. After my experiences here, stuff would happen in the home. Even my wife, Michelle, saw stuff. Kids' toys would move by itself.
Wow.
Very strange stuff. What really, my life turned around when one of them actually came to me in astral form and basically told me a date to return and tapped me on the head, shaking my beard, letting me know that I was not dreaming. When I went out to that area, something ran right past me in the bush along a very slippery area, and that was extremely bizarre what happened to me. And I've when I do IGC communication, they asked me when I'm coming back out to the area, and they ripped trees down there, and basically they said they made a pathway for me. They invited me out on what they call a good moon. I don't know why they tell me, they say we are free, and they say we love you, and some pretty amazing stuff. I record when I go out now. Often I get my name get called out when I go into this particular area.
Now, Mark, that seems to be pretty unique. As far as I know, I don't think I've ever heard of anybody else doing EVP sessions when they're out looking for Bigfoot. Is that right? Or?
People take their cameras, but you know, you need to carefully listen to the audio, not only watch the footage, but you can get electronic voice on out there. Like I do that. I know Mike Patterson gets
of course,
similar things to me, but yeah, I get my name called out. Since I've done traditional paranormal investigating, it's like, yes, there's ghosts there, but some people say, well, maybe they're ghosts, maybe they're ghosts of Bigfoot, or, you know, some creatures. You know, I try to have an open mind, but
yeah,
I want to say from having experiences with regular ghosts, they're different. They have control over physical things that ghosts don't. And yes, ghosts can move things, but it seems to take a lot for them to do that. And I've seen them rip down trees and do things that incredible things. And I've seen some of their structures here in New Zealand too, similar to what you can find in the United States. Right.
It's pretty amazing stuff, isn't it? And I guess that's why, like I said, it's very easy for the just flesh and blood camp to poo-hoo the others, but, you know, these other people, they've had experiences as well, and they don't sound any less sincere.
Yes. I mean, look, I understand, because they do leave physical evidence, trace evidence. And I found footprints in my area. I mean, people say, well, how do you know it's Bigfoot? Well, I'm getting tree knocks, I'm getting stone clacking, I'm getting these bipedal approaches, I'm finding these structures.
Exactly.
I'm actually picking up strange languages I've never heard before as well on audio.
Wow.
Really there's a family of 10. I've been told, and the information's been repeated to me a lot. Sometimes they don't respond to me, and I don't understand why. But they invited me out there. In fact, I was told they told me they think me as one of them, and
Wow.
they have trust with me. And see, a lot of these researchers, they go out and they have a hard time. I mean, yes, you can find structures, but they have a very hard time getting interaction with them. Well, I think if you treat them like a science experiment, I don't think they like that too much. You know, if you're empathetic and loving towards them, and they pick up on that. And I know there's people here in New Zealand who've gone out like me and had a hard time finding stuff. But I think if you attach to them on a deeper level, emotional level, that your chances of having interaction go right up.
Yeah. Now, Mark, if people are listening from New Zealand, hopefully, and they want to get in touch with you, is there a way they can get in touch with you, Mark? Or?
Yes, they can go to my website, hauntedman.net, and there's a contact button at the top there. As I say, I am working on documentary, so anybody that's had an encounter, particularly outside of or around Auckland, I'd be interested in talking to them and interviewing them.
Fantastic. Well, thanks very much for your time, brother. I tell you what, it's been a real honour and a privilege to talk to you and have you on the show. You're doing amazing work, and good on you. I go back to what you said before, that you really got to the point where you don't care what other people think about you now, and I think that's courage. It's good on you.
Well, you know, we only live so long, and so I want those answers. I appreciate you having me on your show, Darrin.
Awesome. Thanks very much, Mark.
Okay. All the best.
Okay, thanks.
Bye-bye, Darrin.
Okay, well, it was a real thrill having Mark Cappell on the show, New Zealand's Bigfoot researcher and paranormal investigator. Great investigation he's done. You've had time to listen to the show, Barbie. Unfortunately, you couldn't make it through the show live, but you've had a chance to catch up and listen to Mark, and you've seen his exclusive UFO footage as well. What did you think?
Oh, it's very impressive. You know, I have to say the video footage is phenomenal. Mm. It's definitely, I don't think it can be disputed. You can definitely tell that there's an object there that cannot be explained, and it fits the criteria of a UFO. So I think the footage is terrific, and I really loved listening to him explain his experiences and different ways that he's handled things, and he's just got a wealth of knowledge from basically kind of everything paranormal. It sounds like, you know, he's used obviously a ghost box, that's great. And I like the fact that, you know, he's open-minded to all of the avenues that are the unexplained, you know, the Bigfoot, spacecraft, all of those things. It was really interesting to listen to his story.
Yeah, he's a fantastic guy to talk to, and he's done so much. I mean, been to Skinwalker Ranch. He's, you know, like he says, he's after answers, but wow, he is tenacious in his approach to it, and his dedication to it is phenomenal.
Yeah, it is. It's very impressive. You know, he's got a lot of experience under his belt by the sound of it, you know. He would be really interesting to meet in person, I think.
Yeah, it'd be a fantastic guy to hang out with for a while. I'd love to go meet the guy, actually. I'd love to travel up and go with him and do some investigations, but I think he'll take off, this fella. I think definitely in New Zealand. Maybe not in New Zealand, actually, because, I don't know, we tend to laugh people off when they're involved in paranormal research, but in America, I think he'd do absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, there's a lot of more accepting souls here, because many people here in the United States have had experiences. I don't know how common it is in your neck of the woods, but here it's becoming more commonplace. It's becoming something that doesn't have quite the stigma that it used to. I'm not saying that some people won't have opinions about what you share, but most people are pretty accepting and won't make fun of you or talk down to you because you've had an experience.
Exactly. Well, thank you so much, Mark, for coming on the show, and thank you, Barbie, for having a listen and having some input there. I always appreciate it. And
my pleasure.
Yeah, thank you. And we'll see everyone next week, hopefully. So it's good night for me.
Good night, everyone.